I'm Gary Nickerson.
And I'm Quinn Taggart.
And this is Outside My Window. The first Yarmouth hospital opened in 1912. Over the years, it expanded and became the Yarmouth Regional Hospital, serving the people of the Tri-Counties with the latest in medical care technology and equipment. Now, some of the funding, of course, is provided through the provincial and federal governments, but community support is still very necessary from folks just like you. That's where the Yarmouth Hospital Foundation plays a vital role. Since 1970, the foundation has raised over $26 million in support for the Yarmouth Regional Hospital. We're very pleased to welcome our guest, Neil LeBlanc, Chair of the Yarmouth Hospital Foundation, and Mary Surette, the Foundation's Managing Director. Welcome to you both.
Pleased to be here.
Thank you, Gary.
You're welcome. So, Mary, the foundation has partnered with Y95 CJLS for the last few years with the We Care Radiothon. Hugely successful. I had the honor of participating for a few years. It was great fun. So tell us about the most recent radiothon and its success.
Well, the most recent radiothon took place on March 2nd this year. It was a tremendous success. We enjoy partnering with Y95. We consider Y95 our partners in healthcare. It was amazing the support that came through. We were raising funds for the emergency department. We raised over $162,000. That's from the community. That's community support, and we're overwhelmed with the support.
That's just amazing. Neil, the commitment and generosity of the many sponsors, it's overwhelming year after year. So how vital are those businesses to the success of the Radiothon and other fundraisers?
Well, I think businesses sort of catch on the story that success breeds success. They know that if they can come on board, that basically it'll create a momentum and a swing. And we've seen that. There's an old saying that, success breeds success, and I really think that is the case. This started off as a small initiative when we first got into the Radiothon a few years ago, and I remember we said we think we can do well with this. And since it's just taken off. It started off with our first chair of the committee was Jeff Little, who did so much work, so much legwork in establishing it, and it's continued on with the new co-chairs, which is Peggy Green and Joy Gillespie Hatfield. And so overall, we're in a situation that we're getting better at it ourselves, but we've been really surprised and taken back by how much support that the sponsors have come through and the volunteers who have come to work. And the people will just basically come around and go into the mall and say, can I give something? It can be $2 or $5. It doesn't have to be thousands. Every amount shows an interest and support of trying to make Yarmouth and our regional hospital a place to be.
I remember a young girl came in one year. It might have been her first year, and she had, change, dimes and quarters and some toonies, and, that was so amazing.
I remember that,
You
Gary.
remember that?
I remember that, yes definitely.
Yeah.
That was the whole community, and that's where Neil has says that every single dollar count, every nickel, dime, quarter, dollar counts, and the whole community comes together. And I will add that our Radiothon is another opportunity for the Yarmouth Hospital Foundation to create an awareness to our community, the urgent needs of our hospital, and the work that goes on behind those hospital doors, because it's nurses and doctors, but there's a whole team effort behind those hospital doors for sure.
We take it for granted, don't we, when we walk through the hospital, no matter what it's for. We just assume all the equipment and services are going to be there.
Well, it's funny because I've had many different hats in my career, and a long time ago, to the large extent, most of the equipment was provided by the province, and the buildings was basically the majority. It was the buildings were supported by the province, but also with the community. When we had the expansions, we went out, we did fundraising, but we're in a situation that a lot of the equipment was basically being provided. Over time, things have changed, and the changes in technology, the change in needs, it's amazing what has come out in the last 20, 30 years, and it seems to be accelerating. What that means in real terms, though, is that very expensive equipment is required more and more, and the province has the ability to do so much on this and not all of it. So it's falling on the foundations to do more. So you look at, since I've been on the board, our yearly amounts that we've been contributing has continued to rise. And the last 2 years ago, we gave $1.5 million. Last year, we gave $3 million. And this year is going to be, we haven't finalized it, but it's going to be well over $2 or $3 million in that range that we're looking at. So we're obviously being asked to do more, and this is just not a Yarmouth issue; it is a provincial issue. So what it means is that people have to recognize this. If we want to have a facility that have state of the art that that can support our families and our children's and our families' health, then we're going to have that equipment, and we're going to have to do it through the foundation. And so for us is, how do you get your message out? So Y95 helping us and using the Radiothon as a forum to try to explain that is what we're trying to do. We're using social media, whatever means that is available to us. But it is challenging. Many people say, well, someone will take care of it. That isn't necessarily the way that it works.
That's a good point, and also the point you made about awareness. And so that tells me that people are slowly starting to understand that community need is important, as I said earlier.
Just to add on top of that as well, I've had some individuals and some donors come to me to let me know, to ask me the question, you've raised money for that quite a few years ago. Why are we raising money for it again? Equipment has a shelf life, just like our phones, cell phones, our cars, our appliances. It has a shelf life. And because, as Neil indicated, modern technology as well. So we constantly have to upgrade the equipment, and we constantly have to replace equipment that is nearing its end of life. And it is our community support that does that.
You can't just ship the stuff out to the local electronics store for repair.
Not. I wish it was that easy, but not at all. And it's because of the technology as well that is coming. And our hospital, our Yarmouth Regional Hospital, is a regional hospital for Yarmouth, Digby, and Shelburne counties. We want to make sure that we provide the services here, and we're doing our utmost to make sure we provide services here, so that people don't have to travel 2.5 to 3 hours away.
One thing that I think people get tripped up on is how the funding formula really works when it comes to the hospital and healthcare in general. The federal government gives money to the provinces. Now, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, Neil, but the way I understand it is the federal government gives the money to the province with no real, quote unquote, strings attached. Here's a bunch of money. You've got to figure it out from there. And then the province has priorities, but then the local health boards and so on have priorities. But with all the reorganization that's gone on from a political standpoint, has that put more pressure on the foundation to do more, or is it just a matter of evolution of things as it normally should be?
If you look at the funding formula and how it works between the federal government and the provincial government, it's complicated, and it's something that's happened. They go back to Stephen Douglas, where he proposed public health care, and the whole process started from there. But it really has been a very complicated series of compromises going back and forth. The federal government does give funding, and up to now it hasn't had specific ties to it. There have been more and more proponents saying that it should be, and the discussions lately here that it should address mental health and other types of lowering wait lists. Those are some specifics, but it's hard to put into practice. So the bottom line is the province is delivering the service with some funding coming from the federal government. But overall, their budget is almost doubled and tripled in the last 15, 20 years. So the pressure on the province is huge, and because of that, there is huge pressure on the foundations to help when new equipment has to be acquired. And that's really where we are. And that's why we're trying our best to try to inform the public that if we want Yarmouth Regional Hospital to have the latest types of equipment and maybe help people not have to travel all the time, then people are going to have to help us. And so it's our job to try to educate the public and to answer their questions and be accountable for the funds that they give us and make sure that we spend it reasonably and responsibly. And I think we've done a good job. But we realize that our task is far from finished. We have a lot of work to do, and Mary and I and the board and the volunteers that we have work hard to get this message out, but it's challenging.
One of the things that always kind of struck me as I grew a bit older is the lack of initiatives for preventative medicine. rather than reactive medicine, right? So if my health plan through my work covers my drugs, covers my dental, covers my vision, it doesn't cover anything preventative. It doesn't cover a gym membership. It doesn't cover it to a point. I think it does homeopathic or any natural medicine and that sort of thing, but it's very limited. How do we turn that around a little bit and try to prevent people from having to use the healthcare system?
Well, this is not a new debate. This is an old debate that people have said money, and if we encourage people to live healthier, that basically will save much more money. It's the same thing of asking people to stop smoking, and we try to do that by taxing it very heavily so that people will not try to smoke. But the bottom line is, for the foundation, we're pretty well and very much focused on our task, which is to be there when the money is required. The policy network and so forth really falls to the province and specifically to the municipalities. And I think the municipalities have done a good job in their recreation of trying to put facilities and so forth that will encourage public to be use more facilities and exercise more. But obviously, until we change the direction, it's going to be hard. And today, look how many people are sitting at home on their computer all the time rather than taking a walk. That's the challenge that's there. I don't know the answer to this one here, but it's obviously a complicated one.
I don't think I know the answer as well, but when you want to slice and dice it, healthcare is expensive and continues to grow in expense. And I just wanted to give you an example for healthcare on our end of it, when we're trying to provide the proper tools for our healthcare workers, our frontline workers. Last year we received a list, not a wish list, a needs list from our Yarmouth Regional Hospital of the equipment. And the list was $10 million. Their top priority items on the list totaled $3 million. And the foundation took that and said, this is what we're going to support this year. This year we received another list from the Yarmouth Regional Hospital, $16 million. So that tells you how expensive it is. But I want you to also think of this. We're one of 42 hospitals in the province. Healthcare is expensive, and our taxpayers' dollars can't pay for it all. That's why we need community support.
And I think that's the point that some people might miss, is that your tax dollars only go so far, and the need is so much greater. It's got to be filled in from somewhere. So, I mean, that's the reason you exist, and the reason you're doing all the fundraising activities that you're doing. One of the other things that comes up, though, is when you think about all this nice, fancy equipment, what about the training and the staff to actually run it? I mean, I'm presuming that a lot of the equipment that's on the list is in line with the staff that we already have, and nothing is sitting there idle just because we don't have anybody to run it.
Nothing is sitting there idle, but another area that the foundation has chosen to support is to increase scholarship for nursing scholarships. We're very fortunate to have the Dalhousie School of Nursing Yarmouth campus here, as well as the Dalhousie Family Medical Residency Program. Those are two programs we support. And the nursing scholarships, we increase the scholarships thanks to wonderful supporters and donors, 9 scholarships now per year. In addition to that, we have supported last year for 2022, and again this year we will be supporting the LPN program at Nova Scotia Community College, 2 scholarships there as well. We're listening, we're trying to help out wherever we can, and we're really trying to support areas that are needed the most, because we know our hospitals, every single hospital right across the country, they're short-staffed. So to hopefully to entice some individuals to join the School of Nursing. And the government has promised jobs for every single graduate from the School of Nursing.
And that's the key, is to get them to stay. I mean, if we have the school local and people from the area are participating in the school, greater chance, I am presuming, that they'll stay.
Absolutely, and I know the committee, the scholarship committee, those are some of the questions that they ask the candidates for the scholarships. do they look at practicing in the future? The majority of them, and I think they had some stats out, the majority of them stay within the tri-counties. And I think it's a high percentage, something around 90% or so.
That's great stuff. That's good to hear because, I mean, obviously, again, everybody's competing for what few staff there are, right? And I mean, I know that the Houston government's platform for the last election, and I don't like to get contentious, but was, we're going to fix healthcare. We're going to hire 1,000 doctors. A, where are you getting 1,000 doctors? And B, where are they going to live? Because it all comes in, right? But if you got somebody that's local, going to school locally, is going to stay local, chances are they're well rooted, and we don't have those sorts of conundrums to go along with it.
Well, that's our biggest reason to support both the residency program and the nursing program, because they're here. Look at what you have here. Make sure that you retain what you have, and hopefully expand and bring other people in. We look at a good example of something else that the initiative that the foundation did is that we were looking at cardiologists and see we didn't have one in Yarmouth, so we recruited one, and one of the conditions was that if they would have the equipment present that he could do certain procedures that weren't available in Yarmouth, he would consider it. Well, the foundation basically stepped up, spent the money, got it geared up, and he's here. So what does that mean? Well, it means that a lot of people don't have to travel to Kentville to do that procedure anymore. So people don't necessarily see all the work that the foundation does because just assume things are there, and that isn't necessarily the case. Another example is that during the pandemic, we had a lot of virtual care, healthcare happening because people weren't really being encouraged to see there, especially in regards to cancer care, to go to oncologists and so forth, to go to Halifax. So they were doing it via virtual. And once that wound down, that program was going to be wrapped up. Our former representative, Sheila Lee, was on the board and came to us and said they're going to address this in a few years. We said we're not going to address it in a few years. We're going to address it now. And the foundation put forward $38,000 to put 2 virtual care machines on place. And I've talked to many people who basically, rather than drive to Halifax to go see their oncologists, are basically sitting down in a room at the hospital, having the same discussions, doing the tests here and discussing the tests over a virtual discussion. Well, it makes a big difference. And, you know, how many people have sometimes had to travel to Halifax to basically be said, yes, everything's fine, your tests are good, and you come back in 2 weeks. Well, if you're not feeling very well and you don't have the money to do that, this is a great alternative. And I think we have to use technology when it's available. And so, but the thing is, oftentimes those aren't necessarily addressed at the provincial level. But we, as a foundation, have the ability to make a change, to make people's lives a little easier. If we can do that, and with our partners, and our partners means with our donors and so forth, who allow us to do these things, then we're going to do it. And as much as we can, we're going to try to make life better for people that are here.
One of the things I think, if nothing else, out of the pandemic has taught us that we can do a fair amount virtually and still accomplish quite a bit. A lot of people that wouldn't have traditionally worked from home, all of a sudden were working from home. Students were learning from home. You had Chromebooks, the long-term care facilities doled out iPads so they can keep in communication with the families and the like. A lot of things moved into that space. Is it a passing fad for the virtual care, or is that something that you see as being an integral part in trying to help reduce some of the wait list and some of the I need a doctor list?
I can't see it. I can't see it reducing. I think it's going to accelerate. I think people have seen the light. I think many people before felt that it had to be in person. Everything had to do face to face. It's like the Zoom meetings that we do on the committee, our board, and we started using them. It's much more convenient, and you can work a lot easier when we can work a lot faster when you do that. So time will tell. But my indication is that it's going to go back so much, but it'll never go back to what it was before. Things have changed, I think, for forever. I think.
I absolutely agree, Neil. And I will let you know that one of the things that we were searching out for ways that we can, again, assist getting healthcare to individuals is through the virtual care. When you think about it, not everybody has access to computers or have access to virtual care. This is another program that will just be starting now, that we've partnered with Nova Scotia Health and the regional libraries to provide virtual care for those who do not have access to computers or laptops or anything. And so there'll be more announcements coming out over the next couple of weeks with regards to virtual care. Again, it's an area that we saw that there was a void, there was a gap, and we are the foundation, and because of our donors, all of this, everything that the foundation does is because of our donors, because of the communities. But because of our communities, again, our board stepped up and said, yes, this is an area that we can assist.
So is this focus going to be on specialist care or general care?
General care.
Excellent. So that should help reduce the I don't have a family doctor list?
And the time and the wait time in the emergency. When people don't have a family physician, they will go to emergency.
Yeah, and that kind of clogs the whole system up for something as simple as I just need to renew my prescriptions.
If I was to predict going forward, I think many more doctor visits are going to happen over the computer versus what they've done traditionally. But I don't know. I can't visualize it altogether. I think it's going to evolve over time. But I do think we're changing in that direction, whereby we had the old type of, I shouldn't say the old time, what we're used to, doctors who had practices of 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 employees that worked 52 weeks a year, were on call all the time at the hospital. That era has come and gone. The new doctors have different expectations, and we're going to have to work within those parameters. And so obviously there's change happening, and those people want to go back to what was there before. As much as we all like that, I don't think that's realistic. So that means that change is coming, whether we like it or not.
I know for myself, I'm lucky that I do have a primary care physician, but he's in Barrington. During the winter, that's a bit of a crappy drive. But I've been lucky enough that he'll do phone calls. And we were doing this, I think, before the pandemic hit, but certainly more so now, because I check in every 3 months. I go in and get my blood work done. I love being able to book the appointments, by the way, rather than plucking the numbers down at 6 o'clock in the morning. But then, he's just reviewing my blood work. And the next thing he'll do is take my blood pressure. Well, I can do that at home, and I can just tell him what the numbers are. And we're done. I don't have to drive 3/4 of an hour to get down there and back. Not that if it's nice and it's a nice drive, sure. But during the winter, not so much. And I'm sure, if I had to go to Halifax for specialist or Kentville, and I could do it over the phone or over video, I'd be on it.
To go back to the hospital and their priorities, oftentimes people say, well, how does the foundation choose which projects to do? And so we're in a situation that our zone lead, which is Tracy Watkin-Allen's right now, they talk to the departments, they go through all the departments, come up with their priorities, and so they're coming to us and they're identifying it. So oftentimes people will say, why are you going to be doing things in certain areas? Well, we don't pick and choose winners and losers. We basically take advice from the professionals and try to, this is not a political process, small p, that happens. It's along those lines. But as Mary has indicated, the list is long. But I do want to say that we try to identify our equipment that we've supported in there. We should be doing more of that so people understand that the foundation bought this piece of equipment. I'll give you a good example. A few years ago, we were asked to see whether we could do lifts for hospital beds and operating rooms and so forth, whereby people would be lifted up off the table with a lift and put into a chair or out of a bed or into a bed or so forth. And by much safer, and then it's much better for our employees because back injuries and other things which happen. And so we started putting some in. And the province actually, though no one believes they can do anything right, they actually did. They have a procurement process, a buying program whereby they buy in bulk. And they came back, and the estimates that they'd given, they got a much better price. And so we ramped up the amount of lifts that we had from a few 15 to almost to 20 or 30 or something like that.
It's up to it went up to 56 from
altogether.
About,
so we've expanded it, but we've heard from many employees, staff, and so forth, and from patients saying that they love it because they were before everyone used to grab onto them. We're going to lift them now, and 1, 2, 3. Well, that sounds great in theory, but something can happen. and someone can get hurt both from staff perspective or the patient. So these lifts are much better. So we're trying not only to think of the patients that receive it, but we're concerned about our staff and their well-being. Happy staff make a very good workplace, and it's better for everybody. So these are the types of things that as a foundation that we're being asked to look at, and we're trying to be progressive and look outside the box and not just traditional of buying MRI machines, but sometimes we're buying small things that make a difference.
You know, that's interesting because that happened to me when I came back from the surgery in Kentville, recovering in Yarmouth. I had my wheelchair. I thought was fairly close to the bed, so I just hopped over it. Well, I misjudged, and down I went. I didn't hurt myself. The nurses were there in seconds, and you know that's really good. You know, I'm thinking with all the hard work that the foundation does, and all the generosity, better facilities, the latest medical equipment, as you said, Mary, the School of Nursing, you know, that's bound to help attract, you know, doctors and specialists and nurses and all of that. Do you get feedback on that?
I think, as Neil just indicated, because of the equipment that was raised, the cardiac equipment that was raised it was at the We Care Radiothon from 2022, that enticed a physician, a cardiologist, to come to the Yarmouth Regional Hospital. So the equipment does help out when med students come here, or when residents come here, they can see that we have the most up-to-date technology here. It is, our hospital is enhanced, and to them it entices them to come work and stay. It does make a difference, that's for sure.
We hear a lot of positive. We'll talk about this after a while, but we're also talking to the Community Navigators program to try to facilitate, and we support that. We give like $50,000-$60,000 a year towards that. We think recruitment is a priority, and we try to do our best to try to facilitate that. And so we were one of the major sponsors in trying to make that happen. But we hear that Yarmouth is a great place to work. People like it. They're surprised by the level of specialists that we have, because oftentimes they look at it as a small out of the way. Though it's a regional hospital, they might think that we have less here than we do, so they're surprised. So we hear a lot of positive things. We hear that the working environment is very good. The staff are friendly. Their colleagues are friendly. We hear a lot of very positive things. The challenges that we have is that we're relatively remote. We're 3 and some odd hours away from the city. People have spouses, partners, and so forth that have oftentimes are specialists themselves, and they're looking for work. So whether they can find work here is an issue too. So there's a lot of challenges to trying to maintain and recruit and retain staff, specialists and doctors and health professionals as a whole. So that isn't unique to Yarmouth, but we don't have the same problems. Perhaps Kentville, Truro, Bridgewater, closer proximity may have some advantages that we don't. We tend to think we have a beautiful area and very friendly, but at the same time, we do have some drawbacks, and we have to be cognizant of that. If we don't do that, then we're not being realistic. But I think we've done well overall, but there's still been a lot of retirements, and with retirements, it causes some health professionals to cease practicing, and that's made it hard. And a lot of physicians are having problems, and then we have a growing population. Never thought I'd see that happen, but all of a sudden here, especially with the pandemic, I think a lot of people are looking at this and working remotely that they can come here, as you pointed out.
So, what's the role of the board of directors, Neil?
Well, it's a good question. We're just trying to replace some of our retiring members who will be finishing in June. And we try to explain to them that basically the board of directors gives direction to our staff, and we have a clear mandate that's in our bylaws and our memorandum of association that basically outlines what our role is. So we have like 23 members at large. All our board is all volunteers. We don't get paid any stipends or anything like that. It's all just for the betterment of the community. We meet as a board probably 6 meetings a year. The executive, which basically is formed by the chair, the vice chair, the treasurer, and the secretary, is basically they meet on an ongoing basis to try to do the day-to-day. And then besides that, we have quite a few committees which are very important. So, and a lot of the work actually happens at the committee level. We have like finance, we have future development, we have HR, we have the Radiothon committee, which is a new one that we have. We have the governance, which basically looks at all our bylaws and our policies and so forth. We have, help me, Mary, my mind's gone blank here.
Future development.
I said that one.
Oh, you did say that one. PR marketing committee. We've got quite a few committees, but speaking of governance, there's one key thing that the foundation, and really proud of this with the work of the board that has done, we've received accreditation in 2021.
Which means that we're recognized nationally for having a well laid out plan, structure, address risks. We have policies to deal with issues. It's clear, it's in writing. And so actually I was the chair of the governance committee. I was told it was going to be a very easy committee, and then suddenly we changed the role. It became huge. But it was the former chair basically took us in that direction, and he showed extreme leadership, and so we did it, and we're very, very proud of it. But it was basically a 2-year process, and nationally there aren't that many that are recognized. In Nova Scotia, it's very few in Nova Scotia. So we're proud, but which means that we have to continuously monitor that. And why is that important? It means that if people are giving us their trust and their dollars to do things, that they know that we have controls in place that basically make sure that we're going to be taking care of what we've been entrusted with in a responsible and in a responsible way, that make sure that everything works to their benefit, and that's important. So it also puts controls on both our board and our staff to make sure that we do things as it should be. And I think overall it's been quite an accomplishment, and it's one that we're very proud of.
How do we stack up on a national level, above and beyond the recognition that you just got? But I mean, presumably there's dozens and dozens of these foundations across Canada, but where do we sit? Are we ahead of the average? Are we a little?
Are you talking financially or structure or operationally?
I think operationally is probably where I was headed.
Well, I think we're doing quite well. I mean, the fact that we've gone through this, we have reviewed like 86 policies, and they were reviewed, and it was not easy, and we submitted it, we've got feedback and so forth. I think we do extremely well. So I think overall, I'm prepared to say that we're very competitive with some of the best. We're not Toronto General Hospital or children's or children hospital for sick children, but at the same time, I think you look at Nova Scotia, the QE2. Obviously and the IWK are the two big tertiary care hospitals, but I think we're doing quite well in comparison to that.
So you're not getting bogged down in the bureaucracy and the administrative. You're actually getting stuff done.
It gets done, but the big thing is that we have to make sure that we respect the privacy of our donors, and that we're responsible how we deal with it. That's what we tell people we're going to do. If you say you're going to do something, you have to go through with it, and you have to respect people's wishes, and that's what we said.
It's a small town. We have to live here.
So to go back to Gary, so how does the board work? So we have those committees, and a lot of the work happens at those committees, and those committees' reports come back to the executive, and then at the executive, they go back to the board. So we're accountable for everything that we do. There's a due process, and it's an open format that we work within our board. So I think it's good exchange. We have very qualified people from across the tri-counties. And so I think overall, I'm very impressed with the caliber of talent that we have. And we're always looking for new people to serve on the board. There's an orientation for everyone coming in, and obviously there's a learning curve for the first little while. Everyone sort of tries to see how it all works, but it works very well. I think it's a very good functioning board.
If I may add to that as well, I have to say it gives me great pleasure working with this board that we have. Neil indicated that it is 22 to 23 board members on our board. There's a lot of expertise, but what I really enjoy working is that they are forward-minded. They're thinking about down the road, the future, and that's what I certainly appreciate in following all the guides. And it just tells you, by receiving accreditation, which is, we're accountable for everything that we do. We're transparent about everything that we do. The fact that our board went in this direction is just so greatly appreciated by myself, because I not only work at the foundation, but I'm also a donor to the foundation. So I think it's knowing that I know when I donate to the Yarmouth Hospital Foundation, I know it's being put to great use and for a cause that's worthy to us all. In comparison to across the country, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of foundations. We may be small to some, but we're mighty when we produce, that's for sure.
I've had a number of friends that have sat on the board of directors of the hospital foundation over the years, and I can tell you, the commitment is huge, and the energy that these folks put into that commitment. It's sometimes it's 7 days a week. Not just the board meetings, not just the committee meetings. Sometimes you get a call to come and sit down for an interview.
Well, I think the issue is that it's funny you're talking this way, because we had a meeting earlier today, and we are reminding ourselves that we are ambassadors. As members of the board, we are an ambassador. So if we talk about what's going on, what we're doing, what the challenges are, and we do that with our friends and associates, then our message gets out. I was mentioning before, our challenging, trying to people understand, say, well, you guys should have enough money. You don't need my money. That's the province's problem, or it's the Fed's problem. So our job is to continuously point out the challenges that we're facing and why we're doing what we're doing, to try to raise money to be prepared. And that means that we have to always work at it. So by doing it one by one, it's way more effective than trying to have it just on the radio or just in print.
In March of 2021, the foundation had that huge, wonderful, anonymous donation of $22 million. And I know you folks have heard the same thing. Well, they've got $22 million. Whether they need, again, getting back to that point. And that's a huge responsibility of the board of the Yarmouth Hospital Foundation to manage that. And I know you folks do that very, very well. Just give us a general sense of how that, that's a lot of money coming in each year. And we see the results through the year. Let's talk about that, Neil.
Well, I think the issue, like I was mentioning before, people say that you have quite a bit of money. We've done well. We've done well over the years of trying to raise money, and we did have that donation that came in, which was very much appreciated, given anonymously. But as I pointed out, the last 2 or 3 years here, we're probably going to give $6 or $7 million over a very short period of time, and we have the emergency department redeployment that's going to happen. That's basically moving forward, and that's going to be a big demand on the hospital. And as Mary also pointed out, we have a list of basically a backlog of equipment that's coming forward. A lot of it is being identified as priorities, but some of them are like a couple years away, some of them are 3 years away, but you try to line them up. So the demands that are on the foundation are huge. And so when people say, well, you have money, don't worry about it, if you think that way, we're going to hit a wall. And so we have to keep working ahead of the schedule and ahead of the tide. And so that's what we're doing. And when you explain it that way, and I think last year, especially when we put $3 million, people said, oh, yeah, well, now I see where the money's going. As long as I know where the money's going and it's spending somewhere that I agree with, some of these areas that are priorities, then it happens. So our job, we noticed, and Mary probably can make comment to it, we noticed after we made those commitments and what we're going to do this year, people are sort of getting the picture, getting the idea that, oh, yeah, now I understand.
It's not only they're getting the idea, it's inspiring some people to donate as well, because I have to say, this is our regional hospital. This regional hospital belongs to our community, the Tri-County community of Digby, Shelburne, and Yarmouth. And as long as those doors are open, and they'll always be open, we'll always be fundraising to make sure that we provide the best equipment possible. And this generous donation it was entrusted to the Yarmouth Hospital Foundation to enhance healthcare now and for generations to come. So that's where our board is looking at, is to address situations with equipment needs now and to make sure that money lasts generations to come.
What have you been able to do because of that donation that you would not have been able to do before?
Put $6 or $7 million back into the hospital over the last 3 years, that's for sure. But there's another area that we reached out as well, and it's from the interest generated. We reached out to the community. We're able to provide grants, and this is annually grants up to $150,000 for organizations, non-for-profit or charitable organizations who have healthcare projects or programs on the go. This is where they submit a grant application to the Yarmouth Hospital Foundation. So we want to make sure that we can continue that year after year after year to help our communities, and that is just provided to organizations within the Tri-Counties as well.
Because we all have a vested interest in making sure things go the way they should.
Absolutely, we absolutely do. But I think this is one of I'm still overwhelmed by the generosity of this anonymous donor to entrust this gift to the Yarmouth Hospital Foundation. But healthcare is expensive, and this is giving us a good base that we can move forward and that we can provide more and more equipment to our hospital, for sure, absolutely. Prior to this gift, we were averaging probably about $600,000 a year. Last year was $3 million, as Neil indicated. This year, it's about 2.5 or probably over $3 million again this year. This is because of the generosity of this particular donor.
The year before was $1.5 million. A lot of times, spending money, even though the demand list is high, it's very difficult to spend it all at once anyway. So you're limited to how many projects you could do with a hospital because of the renovations and the limitations. Of physically to get it done. There's so much construction going on that basically it causes problems. But I think the fact that we have done that, people see it. I think they didn't want us to sit on it, and that's a fair comment. We're open to criticism and to be judged, and so I think we're judged by our actions, and we feel pretty comfortable with what we've done.
Outside of the radiothon, what other methods can folks donate to the Yarmouth Hospital Foundation?
There are several other ways you can donate to the Yarmouth Hospital Foundation. We have two mailing appeals that we send out each year. One is the spring and one is the Christmas appeal. But you can go onto our website and you can donate right online through our website. You can do an e-transfer to info@yarmouthhospitalfoundation.ca. You can call us on the phone, or you can drop into our office with a donation or mail it to P.O. Box 7, Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, B5A 4B1. So there's several ways that you can donate. And just call us. If you want to inquire about some way you can donate, give us a call at 902-749-1669. Reach out and speak to us. Or if you have any questions about the work of the foundation, give us a call.
People actually have asked us to give monthly, a small amount monthly, and so forth. And that's a new program that we're trying to enhance, and so that's something that people can consider. I think a lot of us basically do support certain charities on a monthly basis, and Yarmouth Regional Hospital is more than willing to consider that also. We've made that available.
There's a lot of demands on everybody's pocketbook in one form or another. So, everybody at some point is going to need health care. Nobody's ever going to get by without having to dip their feet in the water somewhere. So it makes perfect sense to support that along the way. People might say, I support it with my taxes. That's true, but there's more to it than that, as we've learned today.
Interesting, as one donor said to me during the radiothon, they came with a donation, and this is a volunteer as well. They said, I'm investing in me. It's my health care. I'm investing in me. So here's your donation.
Yeah. I mean, the one or two times that I've personally had to utilize the facilities in something other than the odd outpatient's visit, I've been very impressed with the staff, with the equipment, and everything that was going on. There was one time when you had a leak in the roof, and that was during one of my outpatient stays, and it was the alarms going off at 2 a.m. Well, okay, but that was an exceptional situation. I think everybody had issues that winter, but the facility itself, above and beyond the equipment that's in it, does the foundation support the facility, or does the building fall under the provincial federal guidelines?
The building is under the Department of Health, to the Health Authority. But I can say that more and more requests are coming for smaller things from the province. Before, in the past, small pieces of equipment would never come to the foundation. Today, they are. So we're in a situation that we're looking at smaller requests all the time, specialized beds and so forth that never would have come to the foundation now are included in the list, on the wish list, so-called priorities that they bring forward. So things are evolving, and that's why we keep saying that there are additional pressures coming onto the foundation that weren't there before. And I think when you look at the healthcare budget, you have a budget this year of, I think, overall $14 billion. I bet you 7 or 8 of that is health. And so as a percentage, it's over half. And when I was back in government in early 2000s, it was probably like 40%. So there's a big change, and it's as more and more demand as we're getting older, and as the technology and requests are coming forward, the percentage is growing, which is concerning. And that's a big policy questions that governments are going to have to address. But from the foundation, we're trying our best to be there when we're asked, when called upon. And we're going to be ready, not only for today, but as Mary has rightly pointed out, is to make sure that we're there for the long term and into the future.
I will say as well, with regards to infrastructure, we have been approached about infrastructure. For instance, we have committed to support the purchase of a digital x-ray machine. Along with that, they realized that they had to do some infrastructure, which the costs of the infrastructure were a couple $100,000. We reached out to Nova Scotia Health and partnered with Nova Scotia Health on the infrastructure in order to make sure that we get this unit into our hospital. Again, as you were talking, I'm thinking of the staff. The staff, there's been shortages in staff in the hospital and throughout every single hospital across the country. The staff, and just with you were indicated about a leak, these staff had to relocate departments and everything. Staff are coming in and they are working additional shifts. They're working overtime. They're doing the best to make up for the shortage of staff that they have. And I just applaud them for all of the work that they do. And some of them, I know some people have used the emergency department, and myself and my husband had to use the emergency department. And I know one particular staff member had a smile on her face, and she was there at the hospital for 30 hours. And that was just took my heart away, because I know the staff, some people don't realize how much they work there. So just a message to everyone out there: be kind to everyone out there. They're working the best that they can work under the conditions that they have. And that's why one of the reasons that the foundation, we want to make sure that we give them the right tools to make their life a little easier.
Do you ever have folks approach you outside of the normal equipment fundraisers and say, "Hey, do you need a comfortable chair for a particular ward or something like that?"
Just last year, I had a donor that approached me and asked me if we needed a certain vein finder. And this particular donor purchased 2 vein finders for the blood clinic. So yes, we do. Often we do. I had another donor that approached last year as well to provide a couple more scholarships last year, which is why we're up to 9 for the School of Nursing, because they wanted to reach out, and it was another anonymous donor. They wanted to reach out and make a difference and help out on the front line. So
we're finding more specific requests of people looking to do something special, whether it's a nursing program for assistance for someone from Shelburne County or something along those lines. So it's getting to be a little different, and I think there is a generational thing. There is a transfer. There's going to be a lot of legacy things given by people over the next decade or so. So it'll be interesting to see. We're hoping that people will see the foundation as a place that they can leave that legacy and making it last a long time. We're more than willing to consider it. We know there are other options, but at the same time, we're trying to do our best to prove worthy of such a thought or a consideration.
When you were speaking about, we were talking about the medical equipment, it's not just the latest technology. I mean, it's the best, but a lot of the technology now is less invasive, so it's much easier on the patient.
absolutely. Another commitment that we made last year was for the laparoscopic suites. And this is less invasive surgery. And we supported this. The foundation, through the community, supported this about 10 or 11 years ago. Well, that equipment has reached its end of life. So therefore, $1.5 million we committed, and this year they're going to start to replace a lot of the equipment that's nearing its end of life in the laparoscopic suites.
Well, I want to thank you both, the members of the board, the volunteers, everybody who, this amazing commitment and work that you do. I think folks have a listen to this. It's going to be a real learning experience, and we wish you all the best on the next fundraiser. And thanks for coming in.
It's our pleasure. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much to the community.
I'm Gary Nickerson,
And I'm Gwen Taggart.
and this has been Outside My Window.